When most think of extremely macho, manly movies cluttered with wall-to-wall action, one film that almost immediately comes to mind is Conan the Barbarian. And this does make sense, considering both barbarians and Arnold Schwarzenegger himself are very famous for appealing to men. But if one were to actually watch Conan the Barbarian based off the reputation it has, most would probably be very surprised by the kind of film it actually is. And today, I'd like to compare how most people view the movie that shot Arnold Schwarzenegger to fame to what the film itself is actually all about. And obviously there will be spoilers ahead, so in case you'd like to see the movie for yourself first and don't want anything ruined, you should probably come back to this video another day. You have been warned. Okay, so as I already said, when most think of Conan the Barbarian, they'll probably picture something akin to a stereotypical Viking movie filled with a lot of action scenes and men killing each other. And the opening does give the impression that this is the type of film it'll be. As in the words of old Arnie himself, the best things in life are...
crush your enemies, see them driven before you, and to hear the lamentation of their women.
But for anybody expecting to see much of that, they're going to be very disappointed. Because in actuality, the movie is a lot more focused on exploring the fantasy elements of Conan's world and is overall surprisingly artsy. Or, to put it another way, there are many sections that involve characters simply walking around exploring, and there is way more scenes of them fighting intangible spirits than other men. And overall, it's very quiet most of the time, so if you can't keep up with what's going on, there isn't much exposition to help you. And this surprisingly artistic quality is also very apparent in the actors' performances, as everybody's playing their parts dead seriously, to the point that you'd almost think they were in one of William Shakespeare's more out there plays. Some have even credited James Earl Jones with single-handedly elevating the film with his absolutely mesmerizing performance as the villain Tulsa Doom, and Mako similarly puts his Oscar-nominated skills to excellent use as the Wise Wizard. In other words, a dumb action movie this most certainly is not, as not only does it take itself very seriously, but also tries to say something important as well. And once again, due to a lack of dialogue, it's not something that's easy to pick up on. Because in the very first scene of the movie, Conan's father presents his son with what's known as the riddle of steel, and how he believes the answer to it is that only in steel can you trust, nobody else. However, he's proven to be wrong about this only a few minutes later, as he ends up killed by his own sword. And much later on, when Conan confronts Tulsa Doom over the murder of his parents, Doom replies that the answer to the riddle is that flesh is stronger than steel, because by his logic, steel is only as strong as the flesh that wields it, and his powers are greater than any steel can have. But at the end of the movie, Conan seems to find the real answer to the riddle, that it's will, the desire to do something that is stronger than either flesh or steel. Because simply put, Conan's desire to kill Tulsa Doom and avenge his parents are what motivates his every action throughout the movie. Multiple times he's even given the chance to walk away and live a happy life, but he absolutely will not stop. Ever until Doom is dead. No matter what obstacles are in his path, no matter what he has to endure, his goal of killing the man that murdered his parents and ruined his childhood drives him to keep on going. And thus it wasn't his steel sword or his flesh that allowed him to succeed in the end. It was his willpower, his sheer determination to achieve his goal no matter the odds. But even then, once he's finally achieved his goal, there's still something else the movie has to say. Was it really worth it? After everything Conan endured, after everything he had to see and go through, up to and including watching the woman who professed her undying love for him die, what has it got him? Sure, he avenged his parents and freed everybody from Tulsa Doom's cult, but what does he do now? And that's a question the movie doesn't answer. Conan is simply left to reflect with the corpse of the man who ruined his life and confront the fact that his revenge quest has left him feeling unfulfilled and ponder if it was worth everything he had to go through. And one has to admit, that's pretty deep for a movie about literal barbarians. In the end, Conan the Barbarian is way more a deconstruction of barbarian movies than anything else. Instead of showcasing glorious battles as the main character fights his way to victory and gets everything he ever wanted, the danger he constantly faces is real. It asks the audience questions they might not be able to answer, and the hero's ultimate triumph leaves him feeling completely empty. If anything, the movie is really saying that violence is pointless and can only lead to misery, and that the key to true happiness lies in the companionship of people who really care about you. And this is perhaps best shown after Valerie dies at the hands of Tulsa Doom, and it is Sabita, his best friend, who cries. Because, as he so beautifully puts it, he is Conan. He will not cry, so I cry for him. And in the end, Sabita is about all Conan has left once his vengeance is done. He is the only thing of true value that he's gained in his revenge quest that he didn't lose by the end of it. The one thing he still has to go back to once the credits start rolling. As I already said, this movie is about as far removed from its reputation as a movie can possibly get. Because let's face it, when one thinks of Conan the Barbarian, they do not think of a quiet, artistically made film that asks a lot of questions and pushes difficult realities on the viewer. So then the question must be asked, how did its reputation become so skewed? Now, please keep in mind that I am no film historian, so I can't say anything with complete certainty. But if I had to harbor a guess, it would be a combination of many similar movies that came out in the wake of Conan's success that were a lot more manly and superficial in nature, which includes its own sequel, Arnold Schwarzenegger's later success in films like Commando, which were all about action and the hero triumphing in the most over-the-top ways possible, and the countless parodies centered around Conan the Barbarian that either focus only on the film's few action set pieces, or otherwise physically resemble the movie but don't actually share anything in common with it. And considering most non-movie lovers are a lot more apt to be exposed to stuff like that than the movie itself, it would stand to reason that the movie might end up being seen in a false light over time. But whatever the reason is, the point still remains that Conan the Barbarian couldn't be any more different from what its reputation implies it is, and more so than most other films that suffer from this phenomenon. Instead of being a surface-level action movie full of testosterone poisoning, it's a very deep and introspective film that places a lot more emphasis on its themes and fantasy elements, though considering its false reputation has helped make it the iconic film it is today, one has to wonder if it would be nearly as well known if it was actually given credit for what it is. After all, if many love it precisely for what it isn't, what does that mean for the actual movie? Probably that it would appeal more to a different demographic than the one its reputation has attracted, but it's hard to say for certain. In the end, they say you can't trust a book by its cover, but in a case like Conan the Barbarian, you also can't judge it based off its general reputation either. Sometimes, anything short of the story itself can be incredibly misleading. Alright, I think I've made my point with all of this, so now why don't you share with me? Did you believe that Conan the Barbarian was the macho, action-oriented film that it's often advertised as, and am shocked to hear just how different from that it actually is? Or do you believe I'm exaggerating the differences between its reputation and the actual film? please feel free to let me know in the comments below. And as always, you do not have to agree with the more opinion-based parts of this video if you don't want to. You can feel any way you'd like about Conan the Barbarian and its reputation, and I nor anybody else can tell you you're wrong. And thank you all for watching. I really appreciate it. And I hope to see you all next time.